Welcome to StartupSac Sacramento Startups Podcast. Today I'm with Christine Sison.
Sison, yes.
I said it right. Who is the founder of Swiss Monkey and the winner of StartupSac's recent Warm-Up Pitch competition that we held on April 5th. So Christine, welcome. And let's start by having you introduce yourself. What's your background? Tell people about Swiss Monkey.
Great. Well, Swiss Monkey is a dental staffing network. So essentially what we do is we help dental practices look for staff that are looking for permanent or temp positions. And so I got into this. This started about three years ago. It feels a lot longer than that, but about 3 years ago. I run a dental practice here in Sacramento in downtown, and one of the things that we found really challenging was the ability to find talent really affordably and quickly. And it was, at that point there was like Craigslist, there was Monster, there was some of those other kind of more generic job boards, and there wasn't really one that was specific to dental that would allow me to kind of quickly identify whether or not a candidate was the right fit for our office. And so that was kind of where Swiss Monkey was born. My general background is in healthcare, so I went to school in Northern California in UC Berkeley. I got my master's in health policy and management from Harvard, and I did brain tumor research at UCSF. So I kind of have a nice general background in the medical field. And about 10 years ago, I started a dental practice in downtown. My husband's actually a dentist, which is where this all kind of came about. And so, we have been, I think, doing pretty well in the last 3 years. We've grew to about 1,100 dentists in California, and about 5,000
on the platform.
On the platform, and then about 5,000 health professionals that are actually actively using it to look for positions.
Okay, so you experienced a problem in your own practice, and so how long did it take from the time that you had the idea that I need to do something better and there's got to be a way to do this before you actually had a prototype you didn't see?
Yeah, it took. I think I was just mulling this idea around for about a year, just kind of thinking about it. I think when you're in the startup space, you have to really be thinking about whether or not this is just something, it's a problem that you really actively want to take a lot of your time and money and effort to focus on. So it was about a year where I was just really thinking about whether this is a problem that needs a new solution, and not only that, but are people willing to pay for a new solution, right? Is it that much of a pain point that, hey, I'm looking for something much better and I'm willing to pay for it? Because obviously this is still a business. You want to make sure that that you're recouping some of your costs to develop the technology and the people and all that. And then once it happened, I built out an MVP, which I don't have a tech background, so it was a little bit challenging, but I had an idea of what I think I wanted it to look like in a few years.
Did you do that yourself or bring out a tech team, or how'd that work?
Yeah, so I just used my informal contacts. We found a guy that would do the development costs for a fraction of the price, and he was able to defer some of the costs over time because he knew I had a little bit of money, and I couldn't spend it all at the beginning. And so he was gracious enough to be like, hey, we will kind of do some payment plans, and we built an MVP, which was, at the time I thought was the most glorious thing. I was like, oh my gosh, my baby's coming to life, this is amazing. And when we actually used it, it totally sucked. It was just the worst thing ever. But I was still like, wow, this is something. It's better than it was before. And then over the last 3 years, it's probably gone through 3 or 4 facelifts. We're now in the process of doing the next technical iteration, and we'll be able to kind of add services as we validated the field and wanted them. So I think going through that journey of not trying to create the most perfect product at the beginning, because you really don't. You think you know what the field wants, and I thought I knew it.
Yeah, because you were your own customer.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And then like, this is going to be great. This is everything we need to do, and then you go in there and it just does not work anything like what you wanted. But you get a sense of like, okay, this is really where, this is what we need. These are the buttons that we need. This looks like that. And so it was really an iterative process, and it was painful, but I think it was really necessary for us to get to the point that we're at now.
So describe maybe that, you had your idea, you had these ideas of what should be in the product, and you went through some kind of customer validation to validate that. Was that with actual customers, or did you actually do some market research actually before you built the MVP?
A little bit of both. So, being in the dental field, we have a lot of people that we know within the field that were either looking for jobs or obviously other offices that we work with. So we knew it was a pain point for offices. They were always looking for people, and we knew that people that were looking for jobs wanted something a little bit, I think, more specific to the industry. But we didn't spend tons of money kind of doing huge market research. I think when you're on a budget and you're 1 or 2 people with an idea, you're kind of do your best guess. You're going to do a little bit of your own kind of legwork to get a sense of whether or not within your immediate circle there's there's a need, and then you kind of just go for it.
Did you use, I assume you had some contacts in the dental industry that once you were using it, you kind of pushed it out there and got some other customers to try it out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just, it was really down and dirty at the beginning. Basically, we texted everyone I knew, all of the dental reps that I knew, all of the offices, and you don't want to go so big because you're not quite sure it's going to work, right? So you don't want to fall flat in your face. And so we kind of just, those that knew that we were developing it, we wanted to kind of start small, so we just started in Sacramento. And it took a while. Like, the technology took a little, I think some time to work really well. And also because, we're creating a marketplace, so we're in staffing, so you need both kind of the supply side and the demand side of people looking for jobs and people that need jobs. And that's hard to create when you're creating a marketplace, especially in a new field like ours. And so that took a little time.
What was the response from them in that initial first product?
Yeah, so I think for us, people were really excited about it because it was just something new, something fresh, and I think people liked the fact that it was an app and they can find things quickly. But we came to the point where we had a lot of people download the app and there weren't enough jobs. And so at the beginning, then we'd okay, we have all these people looking for jobs, there's no jobs. And then we had to kind of switch our focus and all right, let's just give this app away for free and let doctors post jobs, and it's totally free. So we then had a bunch of doctors, posted jobs, and then they were posting in areas that we didn't have any job seekers, so we had to go flip on. So, we're kind of going through this, this whole thing where we are scaling very carefully now in terms of not just going everywhere all at once, because it is that marketplace effect. Like, it's kind of like the Uber or the Lyft, right? You can't have more drivers and no passengers. So we are, I think, carefully figuring out how to do that well. And it took a little time to do that.
Was there a key takeaway from that you learned? That's the key lesson learned about how to do that?
Yeah, actually, first it was just like we felt the pain just because we would go into areas that had needs. Like, for example, doctors in the Bay Area really need a lot of assistance and hygienists and whatnot. And then we found out, gosh, there's nobody there. And so part of it is that we would just expand in certain areas without just kind of, not haphazardly, but just kind of within Sacramento, we just kind of expand outward. And that's one of the ways that we found out. And I realized, like, gosh, this is just not working. Like, we have to be more diligent about how you expand your product and work and how you scale. And because we were come across that, we decided, okay, we're going to focus on Sacramento, we're going to focus on the Bay Area, and in LA. Those are kind of our main geographic areas, and we're going to try to say no to everything else. And that's really what we've been able to do, is kind of figure out what's our main focus areas, expand one geography at a time, and take it from there. And then you can start to grow from those main areas.
So is that you're still geographically limited to those three markets right now?
Yeah. So right now, we're now all over California. So we've been able to scale a little bit beyond those, but those are still three primary focus areas. And now, probably in the last 2 weeks, we're starting to go nationwide, and that in itself is a very, we have to be really thoughtful. We're still a small startup in terms of how to do that well, and so we're developing a lot of strategic partnerships and technological integrations to allow us to scale nationwide in a deliberate fashion.
Now, are you full time on this now, or have you left the practice and you're
I'm
the CEO of this, right? And you're just running with it?
Yeah, no, it's a full-time position, and we have a team of how many? Like 6 people now, and they're all. I think the majority of us are full-time, and the team's really great. I think we're working all the time, really passionate about the problem that we're trying to solve. So. Yeah, I think startup life is like 60, 80 hours a week, but it's a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun doing it.
Would you ever have imagined 2 or 3 years ago that it would have taken you this far?
No, I think, when you start off, you're just kind of, it's a passion project at the beginning. Like, great, this is something that's a problem, it's a need. Mm-hmm. And then you start to invest and you realize, it's just a real problem. People are willing to pay for it. So you start to develop your product. And all of a sudden it starts to work. And you're like, even now when we place jobs, like, oh my gosh, it's working. And you kind of just like have to take a deep, kind of step back and like, wow, this is actually, worthwhile. And people really appreciate this kind of new service and a new product. So every day is just, it's pretty amazing to be able to wake up and do something you love.
And you've hit some milestones recently. We were just chatting before this. You hit a revenue milestone just since we last spoke a couple of months ago at the pitch competition. Where are you at as far as growth and scaling revenue, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we probably in the last 12 months, we have probably grown by like 300-400%, and then in the last just month or two, probably grow another 25%. And that's so remarkable for us because we've been really working hard to figure out how to grow. And one of the things we were talking about, I think, is how to, where to get the money to go, right? Do you self-fund? Do you go out to Silicon Valley and start to pitch? And I've been doing a little bit of both. And I think we're still trying to figure out where, do we want to kind of focus on our product first, or do we want to start to look for investor money? So I think when you're a startup, you're always having all of those kind of questions in your mind in terms of how, as a founder, where do you dedicate your time? Because there's always a million things to do, and there's only one of you, so you have to really be thoughtful about, do you focus on the product, the funding, and which one comes first? And sometimes, depending on where you are and the life cycle of your company, things have different.
So I think you're totally bootstrapped so far, right?
Yeah, we're totally bootstrapped, and so one of the things that was really important for me is if for some reason we decide not to raise investor funds, that we're building a company that can be self-sustainable, right? Like that you aren't dependent on other people's money to build a great company. And I think that for me has been really important that, hey, if for some reason it doesn't come, that the company can be sustainable. And it takes a little bit of time, it always does, to be able to get from that, the negative cash flow to breaking even to making some money. But we've been able to be really thoughtful about other non-investor funding, whether it's friends or family or loans or whatever it is, or your savings, to be able to get to the point where you can now have a choice as to whether or not you want to go out for external.
Is that something you don't want to do that whole life?
I think that's something we're definitely exploring. I think that's when you get a kind of an infusion of cash, you're able to scale much faster, you're able to make changes much quicker, and you have to think about how important that is for you to kind of gain market share, especially if there's other companies that you're starting to compete with. So as a founder, you have to think about, do you grow slowly? Is your product making enough money already that you can kind of reinvest and kind of use that to build momentum? Or whether or not, hey, it's more important for us to give away some control, give away some equity, and get that infusion of cash to do that. And I think every founder has to make the decision as to which one is more important.
And right now you're focusing on it's down on growing the product and increasing sales?
Yeah, I think that's definitely our thing. And once, especially as a founder, you want to be able to get a good valuation for your company, right? Like don't want to give away tons if you're not quite ready for that. So I think we probably, I'm still going out to Silicon Valley probably twice a week to just get the conversation starting with investors. Okay. So, one of the things that I think is important is when you go out to investors that you're so desperate for funding that you need it right now, you're going to run out of money. And so one of the things that we're looking to do is we go out there, we just have conversations, we let them know how we're doing, we follow up with them a month or two later, and just let them know that we're growing, we're building traction, and that they can see the story unfold as to how Swiss Monkey is doing. It allows me a little bit of leeway too that, I don't need their cash right now, but eventually down the line if we decide to do it, that they have seen us kind of grow up in front of them.
You're laying the groundwork. How is that, have they been receptive to that, just that, getting to know you kind of a thing?
Yeah, I think for us, that's kind of the story that we're hearing from investors, and there's interest there, and they want to see us grow, and they have a lot of questions, and as a founder, sometimes you want the answer right away, you want that check right away when you get the pitch, and the reality is they have a lot of questions, they want to see some data, they want to kind of see that there is actual traction there. We're not a pre-revenue company, so we actually have data, so we're able to kind of show, hey, here's how we're growing. And I think there's some investors rather, that want to see certain benchmarks. They want you to hit this kind of growth rate at these numbered numbers, and so sometimes we might be a little behind that, and a little bit ahead. But I found that investors usually like to kind of work with you over a period of time to just make sure that they're investing in the right company.
So moving maybe a little bit to some advice that you've had some success. Part of this program is to be able to share your experiences so that others coming up behind you can learn from that. So what are the biggest challenges you've overcome, and how have you overcome them?
Just as a founder?
Yeah, anything to do with your startup.
So I think you just have to have a lot of grit. I think that's one of the things is that, you hear the stories of just kind of this emotional roller coaster, you're not quite sure if this is the right thing, and you have to really understand the reason why you're getting into starting your business. So if you're kind of in that phase where you're not quite sure, don't start it yet, because you have to be absolutely sure, because you need a reason why, especially when you have those down days, or like the cash is really tight, or it's a really hard day and you're getting a lot of no's, that you need to kind of have that fire inside of you that says, this is why I started. I think that's so important, because anything less than that, you're going to crumble when it gets really tough, and there are going to be some tough days ahead. So I think having a lot of grit, really knowing kind of your understanding the why is going to be really important, and don't run out of money. Don't run out of money. I think that's don't run out of money.
How to not run out of money. So was there a certain tipping point that where you knew, okay, I can quit doing my day job, and it's going to stop being a side gig, and I can go full time on this? Was it a certain revenue mark, or? but what was that tipping point?
I think it was for me, when I started to see that customers or doctors and people looking for jobs were starting to really use it, and they were asking more for the product. I was like, okay, I have to figure out, is this going to be like a side gig, or is it something that I need to devote more time, because it's not going to grow unless you invest more time into it. It's just going to it's going to just kind of be in the background. It's going to slowly die. And I just kind of made that decision, like, look, this is something I want to do. I think it's an important problem to solve. The market is saying that they want something new and different. So at that point, I was like, I've got to figure out the way to make this a full-time gig, and so I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of make that leap over.
So, question I forgot to ask earlier, and I'm sure it's one everybody is at the top of everybody's mind. Why Swiss Monkey? What's behind the name?
This is I always get.
I know you get this a lot.
Swiss monkey is like an urban myth now. It's like, what is this? There is no. Okay, so there are no monkeys in Switzerland. Not that I know. I've had a lot of people come from Switzerland. So there's no monkeys in Switzerland. We wanted something just provocative, something a little different that wasn't like dentaljobs.com. And so, it rolls off your tongue. It's something that people, I think, remember. It gets us a lot of kind of foot traffic and conventions. It's kind of two words that kind of go together, like peanut butter and jelly. We wanted to go something that was a little bit out of the box.
How long did that take to come up with that? That must have been a hell of a brainstorming session with some wine or something, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was like it did involve a little bit of wine, if you will. And it would just actually, my husband were kind of just brainstorming it, and it came out, and I was like, yeah, Swiss Monkey. And I was in my mind, I was like, do I really want to answer the phone saying,
Swiss Monkey?
Hi, you've reached Swiss Monkey? And it took me a while to be like, all right, I would be comfortable with that, that's okay. And now it's much, now it's easier to say. But at the beginning it does, you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to be that company with a really crazy name. But it just kind of, I think it was that and a few other kind of really boring ones. And we're like, let's just do something that's really outrageous. So that's how it is now.
So where do you see yourself, what's next for Swiss Monkey? Where do you see, and where are you going this year? And then where do you hope to be a year or 2 or 5 down the road?
So our immediate goal right now is to develop some strategic partnerships within the field, pulling together an advisory board. You're always raising money when you're a startup, and so I think we're at that point where we are going to either be looking for some more funding, either investor-wise or other more traditional routes. And so that's our kind of initial focus. We're trying to go nationwide, so that's kind of the next piece, is how to really do that, and which geographies to focus on, what kind of partnerships. So, we're at the process now where we're starting to scale a little bit. And then for the tech side, there are some enhancements that we want to do that we're finding that the field is needing, that we want to reduce the friction of our technological project in terms of people using it. So, that's kind of where we'd like to be.
Now, you're in the dental space, and I think in the presentation you gave, you said there's a potential to open anything in healthcare. Is that something you're still considering down the road with?
Yeah, so I think, long-term wise, the product we're building can be applied to other industries like pharmacy, nursing, home health, because they're all experiencing kind of the same staffing inefficiencies. But we need to prevent dental, because all of those spaces are going to be a little bit different. They have their own kind of dynamic, and so the next kind of couple of years is still going to be purely on dental, making sure you really know how to disrupt an industry and figure out what partners that you need to work with, what are really the technological needs, what's the staffing needs. And then once we get dental right, I think then what we'll do is then we will do one vertical at a time. But I think right now our initial focus is really doing dentistry right and not spreading ourselves.
So I want to switch gears now to a little bit more Sacramento focused. So you're here in Sacramento, probably flying around there. How has Sacramento been for you? Have you found the resources and the programs you need to grow and expand? What's working here? What's needed?
Yeah, so I grew up in Sacramento. Actually, went to school out here, and that was in the late '90s. And at that point, there was, downtown was just, I think it was just art. I know you're from Sacramento. It was just like, it was a downtown mall. There was nothing down there. I think just over the last couple of decades, it has grown up so much, and it's such an exciting time, particularly to be in Sacramento and being an entrepreneur, because there's things like Million Cups or StartupSac. I mean, there's so many, and there's, I think, a lot of support around the investors and the VC community kind of coming out together to support this growing environment. So I think it's a really cool time to be in Sacramento, especially as a founder, because you're starting to see all these kind of resources pop up. And now I think as a founder, is really now taking advantage of those resources, right? They're starting to become available, and now it's like making the time coming out of the trenches and being able to kind of network, take advantage of the things that you get, the events and the meetings and all the resources that are available.
So and maybe this is a little bit of a self-serving question, but you participated in our pitch event, StartupSac Warm-Up Pitch, but you were also in Mark Tank recently.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit, what were those presentations, those pitch events like for you, and what impact, if any, did they have on you?
Gosh, pitching is a whole different skill set. So I think my first pitch was probably like 3 months ago, and frankly, it sucked. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, okay, I had 3 minutes to tell my story, to convince someone to give me money. And usually what they're done, it's usually just practice for yourself. And those events have been so helpful for me because one, as a founder, you're going to those events once you obviously get exposure to investors, but you're going to be asked the same questions over and over again usually, and what you want to do is refine your pitch so that you can answer those questions within sometimes 2 to 5 minutes, right? And so for me, it's been able to help me kind of really dial down in terms of what are the things that are most important to investors, what are they looking for, what are the metrics I should be measuring that I'm not measuring, what are the questions that they want to know if they're going to infuse a ton of money into my company, to make sure that they feel confident that I'm not going to blow it, right? So I think for me, doing those events have been helpful because I get that feedback. It's less about me kind of sharing the story, but I like the feedback because I want to know once I get to the point where we are looking for investor funding, that I can answer those questions quickly and in a way that makes sense.
Okay. So here in Sacramento or wherever anybody might be watching this, what can they do to help support Swiss Monkey?
I guess if you
buy your product.
Right, unless you're in the dental industry, well, I think dental industry is one of the most exciting fields to be in. Obviously, if you don't have a profession and you want to go into the healthcare field, dentistry is obviously one of them, so you can always become a dental assistant. We're always looking for great dental assistants. So right now we're really specific to the dental industry. So if you're a dentist, you can use this monkey. If you're looking for a job, you can download the app. But
if you saturated as far as marketing goes and exposure and promotion in the Sacramento region?
Yeah, one of the things you can do is that you can always tell your dentist,
go.
Hopefully you have a dentist
That's
to
what I was
use
trying
this
to get
monkey. To use this monkey, I think only 50% of the population actually sees the dentist regularly. But if you are part of the 50, I think sharing what we're doing here in Sacramento would be great.
Awesome. So any last words of advice, inspiration, encouragement for other startup founders out there?
No, I think this is it's not for everybody. I think being a founder or an entrepreneur is not for everybody, but if it is something for you, it's so much fun and you have to enjoy the ride. It's not necessarily the destination. You kind of enjoy both the ups and downs, and to don't give up and continue just to have develop a network around you. I think groups like yours, coming out and meeting and doing all the kind of the meetups and stuff, I think is so important because you're going to want to have that network when things go a little crazy.
Speaking of that, any mentors that have helped you along the way?
Gosh, let's see here. I think every kind of advisor, when I go out to Silicon Valley and even here, I think has been really helpful in terms of giving me some advice. And so I don't have anyone specifically right now that I've kind of built a long-term relationship, but I think even just within StartupSac, you and Laura have been amazing just to kind of figure out where to go to talk to in terms of, whether it's fundraising or whether it's, intellectual property assistance. It's all of those things. I think those are the resources that have been the most helpful for me.
So, if people want to learn more about you, where can they go find out more about you?
Well, they go to swissmonkey.io.
.io, okay.
Yeah, .io.
All right. Thank you, Christine.
Thank
Appreciate
you so much.
And best of luck.
All right, thanks. Bye.